Hello, welcome to this webinar from Thesis to Book, how to turn your grad research into a book in 30 days. My name is Scott Rank. I am a PhD in history. I also run the website, The Scholarpreneur, where I look into how to take your academic knowledge and put it on the open market, whether through publishing ebooks, online courses, consulting, or whatever else. I also host the Scholarpreneur podcast, where I talk to academics who are doing really interesting things with finding new forms of employment in the 21st century and how to use their academic knowledge in ways that most people would have never imagined. In this presentation, you're going to learn how to turn your MA or PhD into a book for a mass audience. You'll also learn how to take this and format it and upload it to Amazon. Finally, you'll learn how to market your book. The good news is, to do these things, you don't need to have a book in hand. All you need is research that you did at the MA or PhD level. We'll talk all about how to take this and convert it into something that an average person would want to read, how to format it, how to upload it, and how to help it reach your audience. You also don't need any sort of knowledge about publishing. I'll be honest, publishing is a steep learning curve. I've spent years learning about all the different techniques, both in self-publishing and also traditional publishing. But the good news is, in this presentation, I'm going to walk you through all of these steps, and I'm not going to leave you hanging. I'm not going to give you vague advice. You're going to be looking over my shoulder, as it were, as I do these things on the computer, and you'll know exactly how to go through this process once we're done here. Also, if you stick around to the end of this presentation, you will get a free surprise gift. This will help you to get loads of reviews for your book. The lifeblood of any book on Amazon are reviews, and I'm going to show you a simple, free, and ethical way to do this. I say ethical because there are a lot of unethical ways to get reviews out there, but this one is completely ethical, and I really like it. I want to tell you a little bit more about myself so you can hear my story and it might match yours. So, a few years ago, I was a doctoral student in Europe at Central European University. I was studying Ottoman history, and it was a great university. It had one of the best programs of its kind in Europe. I also had great advisors who knew much about the subject, and good funding as well. There's a picture of me defending my dissertation. I'm the guy in the middle in the blue suit. But about halfway through my program, around 2012, in 2012, I got into a rut. I started to become really worried about the PhD job market. The more I read about it, the more worried I became. I came across statistics saying things like, only 20% of people who get a PhD in the social sciences or humanities will actually get a tenure-track job. Well, that made me worried because I didn't know what other job to go for other than being a tenure-track professor. I think just about anyone who gets a PhD that's outside of STEM imagines they'll be a tenure-track professor at some point. But if 4 out of 5 people don't get that job, what do you do? Most would become an adjunct instructor where you're earning maybe $20,000 a year teaching 6 courses. You don't have benefits. You don't have health insurance. And I thought to myself, there are a lot of smart people that I know. How am I going to be the 1 out of 5 that gets that job? And that made me really worried because I didn't know what else to do. Just to give you a little statistic, this graph, if you can't see the lines, the line going up are the number of people in higher education who work on a part-time basis. The number of people in part-time education who work on a part-time basis. The lines going down are tenured track faculty. The point being, tenured track jobs are disappearing and being replaced by low-paid part-time workers. But there was something else that bothered me. When I was thinking ahead my PhD defense, I thought about my dissertation itself. I have never worked harder on anything in my life than this. It's nearly 500 pages long, thousands of sources. I had to research original documents or 5 or 6 different languages. And with this document, with this research project that I'd spent so much time on, I thought, I'll be in front of a defense committee of 5 people. They could be almost the only people who ever read this thing. I've spent years of my life on something that very few people will ever read, and I don't even know if those 5 people will read through the whole thing. Okay, yes, I know that the dissertation will form the basis of academic articles and a book after the fact, but still, there is something deeply unsatisfying about working so hard on something that will reach so few people. I imagine my book sitting on a lonely, dusty bookshelf for all eternity, collecting dust. And there was another reason why this bothered me. I have a journalism background. Before I entered academia, I was a journalist. There was something deeply satisfying about working really fast on an article, calling people up, getting quotes, doing research, maybe only having 3 or 4 hours to write an article because you're on deadline. But then once it's up, you see your name. Sometimes it's above the fold. Sometimes it's on the front page of a physical newspaper. Sometimes it's plastered on a prominent website. But it felt really good to get something out there and then to have readers read it and comment on it. Sometimes they liked it, sometimes they didn't like it, but you knew that you were part of a discussion. You knew that you started a discussion, and it felt satisfying to put something that was part of your creative spirit out there. And I wasn't getting that for my dissertation. I was laboring for years and years in a quiet room, reading articles, and I get a little bit of feedback here and there at conferences or from my advisor, but it was so much less. Well, things started to wake me up to new possibilities of how I could use my research. One was Umberto Eco. He is probably the best known medievalist in the world, and he is an Italian medievalist who wrote a PhD thesis on the aesthetics of Thomas Aquinas. He became famous in 1980 when he published the book The Name of the Rose. It's a medieval murder mystery that takes place in a monastery. It's a really entertaining book. I recommend reading it. It's also very thoughtful. It brings up a lot of interesting, fascinating concepts and semiotics. But the book sold 9 million copies, and this launched a whole new stage in Umberto Eco's career. He published other fiction books like Foucault's Pendulum. He became a well-known essayist and one of the best-known public intellectuals on earth. It all came about because he took his research, he repackaged it for a mass audience, and then released a book out of it. So that worked well for Umberto Eco, but my problem was I didn't have any publishing houses knocking on my door for me to republish my research. I knew that self-publishing existed. This was about 2012, and it was starting to grow in popularity, but I did not have a positive image of it. Here's what I thought of when it came to self-publishing. These are some of the gems I found when I was doing Google image searches of self-published books. Lumberjack in Love and Moria, The Zorzan War. Looks like fourth-rate Tolkien knockoff. This is what I thought of with self-publishing. Really bad fantasy or terrible romance. Sadly, Lumberjack in Love was about the most tasteful romance self-published book cover I could find. The rest of them are these badly photoshopped covers of shirtless men and nearly shirtless women in tawdry embraces with one another. And this is what I thought of with self-publishing. But then I started hearing other things that slowly began to change my mind. I came across stats like this. This shows the growth in book sales by authors. This is daily author revenue from Kindle. That's the publishing platform on Amazon for ebooks. This is in 2014, so the statistics now are even higher. Long story short, what you see there is the purple line and the red line and the green are books published by publishing houses. The blue line are self-published books. You can see over the years from 2010 up to 2013 and 2014 that the total line shoots up, but what's accounting for most of the growth are the blue lines, self-published books. That shows that self-published authors were making $100,000 a day on Amazon. I thought to myself, there might be some real possibility here. This is an aggressive growth market. Growth market is not a term that you hear much when you are an academic. Here's another line showing authors earning from $10K up to $1 million or more per year from genre Kindle ebooks. Again, the blue line are self-published books, and it dominates other categories of all the other traditionally published books. So for authors who can learn about the tools of self-publishing, they stand to make a lot of money. And I thought, okay, there's a money opportunity, but aren't self-published books still illegitimate? They're not carrying the prestige and the stamp of approval of a traditionally published book? Not exactly. I also started to notice authors who completely forego traditional publishing and went for self-publishing because they knew they could make a lot more money. One of the best examples is Hugh Howey. He wrote a series called The Wool Series. This is post-apocalyptic fiction. Hugh Howey, in 2012, sold over 500,000 copies of his book. In Amazon, if you self-publish, you receive 70% of the royalties of a book. traditional publishing will net you maybe 5 to 10% after the wholesaler distributor discount. So Hugh Howey was making over $1 million a year in self-publishing, and he had multiple offers from traditional publisher houses, but he said no because he knew if I know how to do it correctly, if I do it by myself, I can make a lot more. And this process of how you publish a self-published book that looks just as good as a traditional publisher is a process that Hugh Howey used. It's a process that I learned to use, and I'm going to show you what that process looks like. So when I put these pieces together, I came up with a solution, and it was this: to take my PhD research and make it interesting for a mass audience, to retweak it. Then to take this and turn it into a short book. Then to self-publish the short book on Amazon. Here's what I came up with. It was a book called From Muhammad to Burj Khalifa, a crash course in 2,000 years of Middle East history. Like I said, I am an Ottoman historian, but I didn't write a book about Ottoman history because I knew it would have select appeal, especially since my research is on 19th century religious polemics between Christian and Muslim intellectuals. Well, I telescoped out and I thought, okay, let's say I'm talking to an intelligent person who is mystified by the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. They know that there are two groups of people who kill each other, and there's deep historical reasons for this. How would you explain to someone the roots of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict? And I thought, well, you have to go back really to the beginning of Islam to understand different groups within Islam and what's the holy significance of Jerusalem. So that's what this book was. I gave snapshots of Middle Eastern history, starting from the rise of Islam up to the Sunni-Shia split, the growth of the Umayyad Caliphate, the Crusades, the Mongol invasion, European colonialism, and I made just a short little book of 80 pages and just charged $2.99. Amazing things started to happen. I was able to sell hundreds of copies of this book in the first month. And again, Amazon gives you 70% royalty, so by charging $2.99, I earned approximately $2 in royalty for each ebook that I sold. Here's a snapshot of the book at the height of its sales. If you look down at the bottom, you see that it was number 816 paid in Kindle Store. That means of all the books sold on Kindle, it was the 816th best seller. So this equals dozens, if not over 100 books sold per day. It was the number 1 Kindle book in Middle Eastern history, number 2 of all books in Middle Eastern history, and number 5 in all books in world history. And I thought, this is something that I should really go after. So I followed up this book with other books. The 2 books that followed it were History's Worst Dictators, a short guide to the most brutal rulers from Emperor Nero to Ivan the Terrible, and History's Most Insane Rulers, lunatics, eccentrics, and megalomaniacs from Emperor Caligula to Kim Jong-il. So since then, since I've started self-publishing, I now earn full-time income online from many different ventures, but one of them being self-publishing. I've published 13 books, and this was what got me through my PhD program. I was self-publishing books, selling them, and I've been able to earn fairly consistently the equivalent of an assistant professor's full-time salary. I also have a publishing consulting business where I work with people who have a manuscript. I help them get their book on Amazon and other platforms. I help them market the book and launch the book. And exactly the thing that I do for other people, this is what I'm going to walk you through with today. So this is what I've been doing, and it's been great for me. It's been one of the best things that's happened to me in the last few years. Here are some of my other published books: The Most Powerful Women in the Middle Ages and History's Greatest Generals. I just want to ask you a quick question to guess. I did not design those covers. That was done by a freelancer. I do no graphic design. How much do you think that I paid to have those books designed? Go ahead and write your guess in the chat box on the right side of the screen. Just throw out a number, type in whatever you think, whatever's the first number that comes to your mind. Go ahead and guess. Okay, I see different guesses coming through there. All right. Well, I actually only paid $5 to have these designed. It turns out that when you know where to look online and you know how to give people clear instructions, you can get pretty good work done for very cheap. And I'm going to tell you exactly how to find those exact same resources a little bit later in this webinar. I've also written children's books. I have a friend who's a graphic designer, and we worked together on a book called The Hippo Who Did Gymnastics. Along with this, we had the book translated into multiple foreign languages. On the right side of the screen is the book translated into Japanese, and I kind of like how it looks in Japanese better than English, but that's just me. So let me break down this whole process before we get into the nitty-gritty and talk about how to do it. What you do is you take your MA or PhD research, you find the part of your research that is the most useful or the most interesting to a non-specialist. Imagine a smart person who's not in your field, someone who listens to NPR. How would you explain that to them? Then you rewrite it for that smart person outside of your field, and then you publish the book. That is the process of how you convert your research into a book. Now, I should say a couple things up front before we really dive in deep and who this webinar is not for. This is not for everyone. First of all, this is not for academics who look down on writing in a popular style. I remember I was once on a text seminar learning Ottoman Turkish, and I mentioned to someone else, an academic mentor of mine who did popular history, and this guy was really arrogant and said, well, okay, if you can't cut it as a scholar, then I guess, you'll slum it and write popular history. And I just thought that was really arrogant viewpoint. It annoyed me because, as if we can't escape from the ivory tower and the unwashed masses are too dumb to appreciate what we do. I thought, well, no one's going to be interested in historiography or all the nomenclature that us academics use. So if that's you and you don't like the idea of writing at a popular level, then, well, honestly, I think you should sign off now because we are not for each other and we fundamentally disagree. This also isn't for those who don't believe that their research is suitable for a wider audience. Now, I believe that anything, if done right, any research can be converted to be interesting for a wider audience. You might think, but I study intersectionality in 16th century French literature, or I study the economics of 18th century Prussia. Well, okay, if you frame it like that, then it's not interesting, but if you can telescope out or learn how to focus on part of your research that's interesting, you can repackage it. I believe that any research can be repackaged to be interesting for a mass audience, and I'll tell you how to do that with a simple technique in a second. This webinar is for those who can quickly take action, who enjoy communicating what they study, and are willing to do upfront work for a later payoff. Now, I want to ask you a question to think conceptually about all these issues. And here's my question. Why don't academics think most people would be interested in their research? Why do academics think, well, okay, most people don't care what it is I'm studying. Go ahead and type that answer into the chat box on the right side of the screen and tell me what you think about this. Why don't academics think most people would be interested in their research? Okay, there's a lot of interesting responses there. Here's one that I think of. Our work is too boring for the masses. My dissertation topic, again, was on religious polemics between Christians and Muslims in 19th century Ottoman Empire. And when I said it like that, people's eyes would glaze over because they didn't know what polemics were. They had no context for what it was I was saying. And I thought, okay, my stuff is boring. But it wasn't boring. I just needed to say it in a different way. Here's how you can say it in a different way. Here's how you can make your research interesting for non-academics. Make sure your research passes the Barstool test. What is the Barstool test? Here's what it is. Imagine you're at the pub or you're at the bar with friends and people are swapping amusing anecdotes or being funny. And think about it this way. When people ask what it is you study, have you ever mentioned something you came across, something that was really funny, something that was kind of odd, and people maybe weren't interested in all of your research, but there was some amusing little story or anecdote that they thought was funny? Let me give you an example. Okay, so I study the Ottoman Empire, and there's a funny quirk in Ottoman history. When a sultan would ascend to the throne, oftentimes he locked up his brothers in what was essentially a nicely furnished dungeon on the palace grounds because he didn't want his brothers fighting with him to try to claim the throne. Some of these brothers would stay in this dungeon for decades and their sanity would break down and they would become insane. But if the sultan died, because it was a family dynasty, the Ottoman Empire, these insane people would be let out and take to the throne. There's one person named Ibrahim the Mad, Ibrahim the First, who he spent his sultanic career running around the palace grounds with a bow and arrow and shooting at pages. He also liked larger women, and he told his advisors to find the largest woman in the empire and bring her to him. So they found a woman weighing 400 pounds who lived in Armenia and brought her to the palace in Istanbul. And so people thought that this was a funny story, that how could somebody with such terrible mental illness become the ruler of a transcontinental empire? So this was something that they latched onto. They didn't latch onto polemics. They latched onto stories of a crazy person. And I thought, what if there are other rulers in history who also had mental disorders or schizophrenic or whatever? And it turns out the Middle Ages is loaded with people like this who didn't have a firm grasp on reality, but still commanded kingdoms or even empires. So that became a topic of one of my books, and I thought of the idea because it passed the Barstool test. So think about it this way. What anecdotes or stories do I have from my research that interest people, like mine with Ibrahim I? And when do people's eyes glaze over? When I start talking, I can tell they're bored, then don't do that. And when do people ask follow-up questions? If I mention something and they ask a follow-up question, and you can tell they're not just being polite, but they're really interested, that gives you an idea of how to zero in on your research and build a popular book around it. Let me give you another example from Kevin de la Plante. Kevin is a friend of mine who runs a site called the Critical Thinker Academy. Kevin is a philosopher by training. He's a former philosophy professor, and he's made over $50,000 selling humanities courses online. Here's how he did it. Kevin told me that when I was a professor at a university, I could make my course topic as obscure as possible, and I knew that the registrar would still send students to me. I could mention something really obscure about philosophy, and there would still be people who would show up to fulfill a requirement for their philosophy major or a general ed elective. When we started selling online, he had to have a different mindset, and it was this. What's in it for my students? How do I convince them that what it is they're doing will benefit them? So he started the Critical Thinker Academy telling people, if you take my courses, you will be a better critical thinker. Now, the content is mostly similar to one of courses in logic, but he didn't name his courses Introduction to Symbolic Logic, Introduction to Aristotelian Philosophy. He made it How to Think Critically 1, How to Think Critically 2. So he kept the end user in mind. Let me tell you how I did this with my book on the history of the Middle Ages. When I wrote my blurb for Amazon, here's what my blurb looked like. Veteran journalist and Ottoman historian Michael Rank is my pen name, brings you a concise history of 2,000 years of Middle Eastern war, peace, religious upstarts, and social breakdowns in this exciting new book. To most Westerners, the Middle East and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict appears utterly bewildering. To untangle this modern Middle East conflict and the 2,000 years behind it, this book is divided in 25 concise chapters. Each one is devoted to a major theme in Middle Eastern history, such as the beginning of Islam, the Crusades, Genghis Khan, and the beginning of Israel in 1948. By the end, you'll know as much about Middle Eastern history and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict as you would after a year-long college course. You also sound highly knowledgeable about world affairs to your friends and associates. So I think about my user. I tell them, this is an engaging book. I'll untangle these questions about world affairs. I'll do it in an interesting way. You'll come away from it knowing a lot from the simple, well-laid-out book. And that's what I give to them. I tell them what's in it for them if they read it. That's the mind shift change when you're thinking about taking your research and crafting it and presenting it to a mass audience. Here are a couple of other examples of people who've done this, who've repackaged their research in interesting ways. A.J. Hartley is a really good example. He is a Shakespeare scholar. He's a professor in literature. But he novelized Macbeth into a Game of Thrones style book of political intrigue. He thought students and readers might like Shakespeare, but they also like to binge watch Game of Thrones on HBO. What if I took the content of Macbeth and I novelized it in a similar way? That's what he did, and he sold loads of books, both in ebook and print-on-demand format, but also in the form of audiobooks. Let me give you another example. My friend Thomas Swanson is a philosophy MA. He studied Thomas Aquinas in Cambridge. He knows all about scholastic philosophy and theology. Here's how he repackaged his material for the end user in mind. He authored books on philosophy and creativity for homeschool students. He made books about how to be more creative in your day-to-day life, how to see the world with wonder and excitement, and also if a high schooler is studying philosophy, maybe at a public school, maybe as a homeschool student, what are the basics of philosophy and how can they learn it as easily as possible? Here are two of Thomas's books. One is called Wonder is a Verb. I helped him get this book out, an uncommon crash course in the art of philosophical thinking. And the other one is Classical Philosophy for High School Students, an Introduction, History, and Philosophical Thinking primer. So both books tell you what is in it for the reader. The first one is it will give you a crash course on philosophical thinking. The second one lets you know that if you're a high schooler, this will give you the overview of philosophy that you need to go further. Okay, so let's drill down even further and let me give you a very methodical approach to choosing your book's topic. I gave you the overview of the Barstool test and thinking about the end user in mind. Let me give you very, very usable tactical ways to go about this. The first way to think up a book topic is to check out listicles. What are listicles? Listicles are these annoying articles on BuzzFeed or Viral Nova that you see plastered all over Facebook, like top 12 celebrities that have aged horribly. Number 4 will shock you, whatever. Now, I'm not advising that you write like a listicle because these have a bad reputation for just being clickbait and fluff. And we're not writing fluff. We're taking our research and we're packaging it, and that's what we're doing. But here's why I mentioned listicles. Listicles do an excellent job of drawing people in. They take a concept that interests people and they draw people in with that way. There are a lot of history listicles out there, like top 12 greatest warriors in history, 14 people who were massively productive, 16 people who overcame impossible odds to become great people in history, whatever. So I started looking through these and saw what attracted people, what people are interested in. And I thought, okay, how can I meet in the middle? What is a topic that a listicle covers that I would know something about and I could write about? And there are a lot of things here that for you as an anthropologist or a sociologist or an economist or a historian or whatever, or a scientist, there are listicles that cover all sorts of topic. And by looking at topics that bleed over into your research area, you can start to get ideas about what people would be interested in on a popular level. So this is a good idea generator. But there's a more specific way to find out exactly what your book should be about. Here's something I've done, and this has worked out super, super well. Here's what you do. You create a survey using a free tool called SurveyMonkey. Just go to surveymonkey.com and you can create a survey, and then it will give you a link that you can put on Facebook or on email, and you can share with people. So what you do is you make a survey and you just come up with 15 or 20 different titles for your book. You don't do anything else but just spitball titles for a book. These are titles that you would be interested in writing. You're not a hack. You're not just thinking up what people would be interested in and nothing else. You have to be interested in the topic, of course. But you just come up with 15 or 20 different book titles and you use a free tool like SurveyMonkey. And then you post a link to this survey on your Facebook wall and say, hey guys, I'm thinking of writing a book. Here are 15 or 20 different titles. Could you click on this link and just take 30 seconds and choose the top 5 books that you would be interested in reading just based on the title alone? And if you can get enough replies, you want about a minimum of 20 so you start to see data trends emerge. This is an enormously useful exercise because you see what people are actually interested in reading. Sometimes we have ideas about people want to read, and our ideas about what people want are way off from what they actually want. Then analyze the results and write whatever looks interesting to you. Let me show you how I did this. This is an actual survey where I just threw out book titles and I said, do any of these look interesting? Most outnumbered battles, history's greatest warriors, people with most descendants, civilizations that disappeared, famous explorers, top spies in history, yada, yada. Now, here are the results, and I did not expect the results to turn out this way. Number 1 was civilizations that mysteriously disappeared. I didn't think people would want that. Or number 2 was top women of the Middle Ages, and then 3 was top spies of the Middle Ages. So this let me know what books would work and what books wouldn't work. The lowest ranked one was Top Sieges in History. I thought that one would do well. I thought there were people who loved military history. Didn't do well at all. So again, these were all titles that I myself would be interested in writing, and I do know a little bit about, and I could easily research to brush up my knowledge. So here were the actual books that I wrote that came out as a result of this survey. The Most Powerful Women in the Middle Ages, you saw that book cover earlier. Travelers and Explorers Who Pushed the Boundaries of the Know World. Spies, Espionage, and Covert Operations from Ancient Greece to the Cold War. And Lost Civilizations, 10 Societies That Vanished Without a Trace. Interestingly enough, the long-term sales results of each of these books tracked quite closely with that initial survey. The book that received the most votes about lost civilizations or civilizations that disappeared mysteriously, that was number one in my initial survey. That's also been the book that sold remarkably well over time. So that little survey that only had about 20 responses from people gave me almost a crystal ball to know what books would and wouldn't sell well over the long period. So I didn't have to waste my time writing a book that no one would buy. And I have written books where I didn't survey people, and I have written books that almost nobody bought. So I learned the hard way there. Now we got into the nitty-gritty of how to choose your book topic. Let's say you have your book topic, you have the Microsoft Word document, you've repackaged it, you've done the Barstool test, and you wrote it with your intellectual but non-scholarly friends in mind. How do you take that Word document and upload it to Amazon? Well, I'm going to step away from this PowerPoint presentation and show you exactly how to go through this process. This process will seem like I'm moving really fast. It's kind of like those cooking shows where somebody prepares a 5-course dinner in 20 minutes and you're practically yelling at your TV, slow down, what do I do after I cook the bruschetta, but before I throw in the cilantro? And you might need to pause here or there and go back once this is all done, and that's fine. But I'm just going to jump in that process and quickly show you the step-by-step approach of how to format your book for Amazon and upload it. Now let's start at the very beginning. You have your book. You turned it from your research into a popular book. This is the Microsoft Word document. How do you take this and format it for an Amazon ebook? Let me show you right away. First, let me show you some of the features of this document. I have a title, the copyright notice. Then after that, there's a table of contents that go to the different chapters. Then don't worry about this free bonus. Author's note, you don't need that. And then an introduction, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, yada, yada. You have to do some special things to format this for the to be an Amazon ebook. They use a format called Mobi. You can upload a Microsoft Word document and it will convert it, but you have to do special things with page breaks, with the chapters to indicate where the table of contents are. And I did go off and learn this stuff by myself. You can also use software like Scrivener, which does it, but it's a headache to learn. Let me show you a much easier way to do all of this and save you massive headache. Whenever I have a problem, I want to do something but I don't know how, and I know there's someone out there that if they know what they're doing, they could do it very quickly. Here's a website I go to. This website is called Fiverr.com, the place where people do things for you for $5. Remember earlier when I mentioned that I had my ebooks covers designed for $5? It was done here. Somebody designed an ebook cover for $5. Well, people will also format your book for Amazon for $5. And please do this. You'll save so much time. It makes your life better. So let me just show you how to do this. If you go top here, Find Services, just click in Format, Ebook Formatting. That's a good one. So if you click on any one of these, I like to go up here, filter by average customer review. You know, you want people who know what they're... So find someone who hopefully has a lot of good reviews. Let's say this. They have 172 positive reviews. That's nice. And then they just say, I will format to your Kindle accepted files doc, docx, rtf, odt. Cool. So all you do is send them your Word file that's broken up into table of contents, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. They will give you back a file that you can upload to Amazon. Okay, so now you have that file. Where do you go? Here's where you go. This is kdp.amazon.com, Kindle Direct Publishing. This is the portal where you upload your books and you sell them. You don't need anything. You don't need any credentialing to do this. All you need is an Amazon account, and I think most of us have this. So here, sign in with your Amazon account. You just sign in. If you don't have an account, you can sign up. So you just come to kdp.amazon.com and you click this button to sign in. If you're new to KDP, you won't see any books down here, but otherwise the screen will look like this. Here's how you get your book up. Click on this thing up here that says Create New Title. Introduce KDP Select. What this means is that if you only sell your book on Amazon, you get perks and bonuses. Do this. Just trust me and click yes. It means you can't put your ebook up on anything else like Barnes & Noble or Smashwords or Kobo or whatever, but when we start out, we're going to want to do this. Okay, enter your book title. Now, I'm going to use my example of the Middle Eastern history from Muhammad to Burj Khalifa. And then the subtitle, this is optional, and I have a crash course, 2,000 years of Middle East history. Book part of a series, you don't need that. Publisher, you can put whatever you want here. This is nice because you can just make up whatever you want. You could have it be, I don't know what your last name is. Let's say your last name is Chapman. Chapman Publishing. To a casual reader, they'll have no idea that you're any different from a normal publishing house. So you can make this whatever you want to be. It's kind of nice. Then description. You remember earlier when I talked about my description of Middle East history and I talked about what was in it for the reader? I'm going to plug this in right here, my original description for this book. So if I drag this out, I just say general overview, okay, about me, a little bit about this book, to say why this book is important, how the book is structured, and then what is the benefit to the reader. Okay, book contributors, that means who wrote it. So the author, my pen name is Michael Rank. And then title, you would select author. Save. And if it's more than one author, you can add it here and do what you want. Language, English. ISBN, you almost definitely won't have this, so you can leave this blank. Verify your publishing rights. This is not a public domain book because you wrote it. If it is public domain, it's sold for free, and we don't want that. Target your book to customers. Categories. This is an important category, and I'll tell you why. When you are shopping for books on Amazon, different books are in different categories. You need your book to be in the right category. Not just for categorization. If I'm on Middle Eastern history, I don't want it to be in American history, obviously, because the right customer won't find it. But also, some categories, books sell better than in other categories. If you don't want to put your book in a super competitive category because then it'll be pushed out and no one will see it. But you don't want it to be in a dismal category because then no one will look for it in the first place. Let me explain. You wouldn't put your book in just general history because it'll be buried, but you don't want to put it in 19th century history of Wyoming because that's so obscure no one will check it out. Let me show you how to choose what category to put your book in. You actually go back over to Amazon.com and go over here to Kindle and just look for different categories of books. So I'm just going to type in history, and this will show me all the different subcategories. If I go over on the left-hand side of the screen, there we are. Now, if I look at this top one here, 13 hours, this is probably ranked super high. Okay, so this is number 290 in Kindle Store. That is insanely high. What we want to do is we want to have a page that's pretty competitive, maybe between 5 and 10,000. And then the book at the bottom of the page, let's look at that one and see where that is ranked. This is, number 2,000 in the Kindle Store. This category is too competitive. We want the bottom one to be somewhere between 20,000 and 100,000. The bigger the number, the less it's selling. If between 20 and 100,000, if we launch our book right, and I'll talk more about how to launch your book right later, then you can get on the first page. You want to be on the first page because people usually don't go to a second page. So casual browsers won't find your book if you're in a category that's too competitive, because you'll likely be pushed to the 5th or 10th pages, and then your book will sit in obscurity. So United States is too competitive. We have to niche down a little bit. It's like what they say, the riches are in the niches. That's a cheesy little line there. Okay, so I'm just going to click down to this one here, Killing Lincoln, Bill O'Reilly. Whatever you think of Bill O'Reilly, he has a big audience, so that one might be competitive. Okay, 4,000 in Kindle Store. This one is also too competitive, Military History. So we have to drill down even one step more. Let's say Civil War. Okay, this is the bottom of the page, War Years with Jeb Stuart. 11,000. All right, so that one is better. It's still kind of competitive, but we've drilled down, and I think we have a better chance of finding what we need. If you want to drill down even further, let's say we go into regimental histories. This one might even be a little bit too niche. The one at the bottom of the page is called Under the Red Patch, 450,000. Okay, so this page is a little bit too uncompetitive, but you see the idea that when you're choosing your category, you have to drill down. Okay, so do that and then find 2 categories that you want your book to be in. So let's hop back over here. Let's just say hypothetically that whatever my right categories are, I decided that I wanted Middle East. That makes a lot of sense. I have Middle East General, and it fits into a subcategory of military history also. So I could say military strategy. Okay, age range, don't worry about that. That's really only important for children's books. Keywords, general keywords that would match your book so people can find it on Amazon. Think of the most general thing, like Google-friendly possible you can find. Middle East history, Islam, Islamic history, Crusades, Mongols. Okay. Select your book release option. Don't worry about this. Upload a cover. Now remember, where did I go to get my books for only $5? And that is our wonderful website, Fiverr. Okay, so if you just look at something like ebook covers, then you'll find loads of people who can design ebook covers for you. Finding an artist will not be a problem. I will design a professional ebook cover. This could be one, book design. Let's click on this person. Okay, really any of these people will be fine. Now, it's not enough to just click on someone who's designed lots of different ebook covers. You have to give them really specific instructions. These people can do a great job, but if you don't tell them what to do, then you can get a terrible book cover like the Lumberjack Romance I showed you earlier. So here's what you do. When you're ready to order, you click on Proceed to Order, and this will take you to checkout. You usually pay by PayPal. It's only $5 again. How do you let them know what to do? Here's what I've done, and this works well for me. When I'm thinking about Middle Eastern history books, maybe I'll hop over to Amazon and type in Middle Eastern history, and I'll look at some of the best-selling books, like A Piece to End All Peace. That's a good book. The Middle East by Bernard Lewis, and I'll look at some ebook covers that I like, The Fall of the Ottomans. So when I find some titles that I like, I'll go back to my person, and when I'm ordering, I'll say, hey, here's a link to 2 book covers. Can you make it similar to that? Now, I want to be clear here. I'm not saying to copy the book cover. I'm not saying that at all. All I'm doing is saying, I like this design. Can you make the design similar? And that's fine. My sister is a graphic designer, and they're following artistic trends in the industry all the time. If they know that a particular color combination or design is popular, they will make changes around that. So you're doing your artist a big favor by giving them a general guideline about what they like. And if they're good, they'll know how to tweak it and personalize it to fit you. So they're not copying, they're just using someone else as inspiration. Okay, so you have your ebook cover. Then you browse for your image and you upload it. I'll do that real quick. There it is, cover uploaded successfully. Enable digital rights management. I just say don't, because the people who are trying to copy will probably get it anyway, and it'll hurt your buyers more than hackers. So I just say no. Say this is the final version of my book released. Then your book content. This is the file that the other person on Fiverr sent to you. When you gave them your Microsoft Word document and they gave you back a document that could be uploaded to Amazon, this is what you use. So again, click on Browse. Click on Browse and upload that document. Okay, and if everything uploads successfully, you'll see this message that said Upload and Conversion Successful. Good. You can also click to preview your book to see how it'll look like on the inside, just to see if you like the format and everything. Then click Save and Continue. Okay, verify your publishing territories worldwide. Select your pricing. Now, when you're first starting out, I like to make it $2.99, and here's why. If it's $2.99, your price must, if it's between $2.99 and $99.99, you get 70% royalty, and we want more royalty. You might think, well, why not make it more money? Well, you typically sell more copies at this lower price point, and you actually make more of it being cheaper than you would at a higher price point. I have done endless testing with prices, and if you want to take my word for it, this is the best to go. If you don't, you can play around with it, but that's what I found works. Okay, Kindle Matchbook, that only works if you have a print-on-demand book, so don't worry about that. Kindle Book Lending. Long story short, people, if they're Amazon Prime members, they can rent your book and you get money for this, so I like it. So if you click on Submit for Pre-Order, then you are done. It will take about 12 hours, and once the book is published, you will get a message that is available. People will be able to publish it, and you are good to go. There we go. Congratulations. Your book is on Amazon. But you can't just let it sit there. You can't expect that people are going to be buying your book left and right. Otherwise, it's going to get lost. There are millions of books up on Amazon, and you have to gain traction. You have to get people to notice that your book exists. How do you market your book? Well, we don't have time to go into this because there are literally dense courses exactly on this topic of how to market your book. I've taken those courses, I've read the books, and I only have time to show you one thing, but this one thing is exceptionally valuable. This is the most important thing that I could tell you about marketing your book, so I'm going to tell that to you right now. You need to get reviews. Reviews are the lifeblood of a book. Reviews tell other people that your book is good. If a book on Amazon has no reviews, people are not going to buy it because they don't know if it's good or not. How do you get reviews? Here's how you get reviews. You send an email to friends and family asking them to review your book. You don't say to them, hey, can you give my book 5 stars? Because that violates Amazon's terms of service. You say, can you leave my book an honest review? Here's how you do this, and here's how you do it for free, so your friends and family don't have to pay any money for it. You can set your Amazon book to be free for a certain number of days, 5 days every 90 days. So here's what you do. You set your book up to be free for 1 or 2 days, and then you send out this email to your friends and family. Subject: here's a free book that I wrote about Middle Eastern history. Feel free to forward. This is the actual email that I wrote to people when I was promoting my Middle East history book. I'll say something like, hi, Kristen, and then one sentence personalized to them because I don't want to be a spam bot. I want to let you know that I wrote a Kindle ebook about 2,000 years of Middle Eastern history from Muhammad to the present day, and I'm giving it away for free today and tomorrow on Amazon. Here's the link below. If you read it, please leave a short review. 20 to 30 words is fine. Thanks, Scott. That's all I do. Now, by doing that, the good news is the first time you write a book, people are really excited that you have written a book. People will want to support you. They'll want to leave reviews. You'll get a lot of enthusiasm from friends or family, and you can easily pull in maybe 15 or 20 reviews this way. But you want to have at least 5 reviews. That shows people that your book is being read, that it is popular, and this is going to increase exposure and increase the probability that other people will purchase it in the future. So please do this at the very least, and this will get your book going. So congratulations. If you have followed all these steps, you have taken your PhD or MA research, repackaged it, published it, and you are now a published author. You are on the way to reaching an audience that you could have never reached otherwise. So Your book is not going to sit for all eternity on a dusty shelf where nobody will read it. And you have done something brand new with your career and done something new in spreading your idea. So congratulations. Now, I don't know the reasons that you decided to show up to watch this training. It could be a number of reasons. Maybe you don't want your MA or PhD to sit on a lonely bookshelf for all eternity. Maybe you want to expose your ideas to a larger audience. Maybe you want to publish your own book, but you don't know how. And I did walk you through the steps here, but there's a lot of other things too to getting a book out there and becoming an established author. Now, let me ask you a question. Do you want to go even faster? I did show you how to publish your book, but other things come after this, like how do you follow up after the first book? How do you build up an audience? How do you build up a fan base? A fan base is critical to selling books in the future. How do you make it so that when you launch a new book, there'll already be plenty of people willing to read it? There's other questions too. How do you syndicate your content? Here's what I mean by this. If you have an ebook, it's very easy to take the same content and put it into a print-on-demand paperback. That means that if somebody buys a paperback book in Amazon, a printer somewhere will whirl to life, spit out your book, and be mailed, and you don't have to keep any physical inventory. But you can also take that same book and turn it into a foreign translation. You can turn it into Spanish, German, French, Italian, Romanian, Arabic, Russian. I've done that with all these different languages, and you can have it translated. You can also take the same book and turn it into an audiobook. Or you can take that same book and turn it into a full online course. And this is all with the same information and the same content. You take one thing, but you just manage to package it and sell it in 5 or 10 different ways. So how do you do that? How do you multiply what you've created into all sorts of different diversified spinoffs? Here's how you do it. I'm launching a new training program called Thesis To Book. It takes what we've gone over in this presentation, but then it drills down much, much, much deeper, and it shows you how to 10x everything I've talked about to take your book and to spin it off into multiple different platforms until pretty soon you're standing on a media empire. What is this exactly, Thesis To Book? It's 4 weeks of online training. It's training in this format where I'll be giving presentations, and then there'll be in-depth Q&As where I'll dialogue with you. You'll be able to chat with me during this time. And I'll walk through the entire process of everything that we've talked about here and much more. Here's what you'll receive in this training. You'll receive worksheets, checklists, templates, and video recordings, and all these things are available to you forever to go through this exact process of publishing your book, getting your book out there, building up an audience, syndicating your content, and turning some simple information into a diversified media empire. So here's what you'll learn. First, you'll learn the bestseller book launch sequence. Then you'll learn how to turn your book into a print-on-demand book, how to translate your book into multiple languages for free, how to turn your book into an audiobook for free, and how to create an online course of your book. The schedule will look like this. If you decide to sign up for this training, we'll go over these things in 4 weeks. First, the book launch sequence, then print on demand, how to translate and how to turn it into an audiobook, how to create an online course, and then the 4th session is a bonus session where you can ask me anything you want to, and I will cover anything that we have missed and cater the information exactly to you. So in the first module, the bestseller book launch formula, I've published 13 books, and I found exactly how to take a book and how to launch it, how to make it rocket to the top of its Amazon category. I mentioned previously how important Amazon categories are, and how to give it visibility in front of thousands of people. Once you know how to do this, it's pretty straightforward, but it does take some work. You have to ask questions of how to get enough reviews, how to sell a lot of books very quickly. Amazon sales algorithm prefers velocity, so you have to get a lot of sales pretty quickly. How do you do that? This is the exact thing that I consult clients on how to do. They pay me to launch their book for them, but I'm going to tell you exactly how to do it in this training. Here's an example, like I mentioned earlier. This was my Middle Eastern history book that went to #1 in its category of Middle East history. This is another book on history's most brutal dictators. It was the #1 book in medieval history category as well, also in world history. So in both books and Kindle, it was #1 in its categories. This is what I've been able to do with my other books as well, and I'll show you how to launch a book to #1 on its list. #2, how to create a print-on-demand paperback. You can take the same content, and again, you can create a print-on-demand book so you can have a physical paperback book. This is a fun process. It is so fun to actually hold in your hands your own book and to pass it out to other people. I don't think anything creates as much credibility as having your own book and being able to give it to others and show that you are a published author. And also in terms of income, sometimes I earn just as much with my print-on-demand books as I did with my ebook, and it didn't take any extra work. And in this training, I'll show you how to do that. Like I said, it is just amazing when you get a book, when you get a box that comes to your door and you see your books in there. Your book is your ultimate business card. By showing people this, it confers automatic authority upon you. I've talked with people who've had incredible doors opened up by having their own published book, and nothing as quickly confers authority as having that. Third, how to translate your book for free. There are services online where you can get your book translated into a foreign language and have that book sold in a foreign market. Ebooks are exploding all over the world. People are buying them in any language imaginable, and they're hungry for new ebook content. Smartphones and tablets are also exploding around the globe, and this is an enormous emerging market. Let me show you what I've done just to let you know I'm not making this up. This is my book on Middle Eastern history translated into Spanish, Arabic, and then Italian. And I've also had it translated into Portuguese and Romanian. So that's the same book translated into multiple different languages. You can actually have this done for free, but only if you have a book that sells pretty well. But because we went through the book launch formula, your book is selling well, so you'll be able to have this done absolutely free. I mean, these are only some of the languages. I've also had it done in German, French, Russian, and there might even be some I'm missing. I'm not sure. But yeah, I've had my books published into multiple different languages. Next, we'll talk about how to create an audiobook for free, how to take one of your books and create an audiobook. And again, the good news is you don't have to do this yourself. Maybe you don't like the sound of your own voice. Maybe you have a voice for telegraph. You can also partner with people and get your book sold and produced as an audiobook absolutely free. This is one of my books, History's Greatest Generals, and on the right side, you see there it is in audiobook format. It's 4.5 hours long, and I work there with Kevin Pierce. He is a voice actor and narrator. He has an awesome voice. I wish my voice sounded like his, but I worked with him and I partnered with him, and we were able to do this together. Again, didn't cost me anything, and this has been another great source of revenue. So I'll talk about how to take your book, how to find a voice actor or a narrator, and get your book in audiobook format. Lastly, how to turn your book into an online course. How to take one of your books and sell it on Udemy. Udemy is a massive platform with millions of users and tens of thousands of course creators. It's a free platform where you can upload your own online course, and it's actually very easy to take a book of yours that's based on your research and turn it into a course that other people will buy. This is what I did with my History of the Middle East course. I have 409 students enrolled with it. It sells for $179. What I did was I just took the different chapters of the book, I broke it down, and I turned it into a course. And once I knew the system, I was able to do this really quickly. And I'll show you exactly how to do this same system as well. This is a great avenue for earning additional revenue. Online courses are another place that are exploding. So what you can see overall with this whole process is I just took one ebook and I diversified it into multiple forms of content, into a print-on-demand book, into an audiobook, into a foreign language translation, into an online course. And again, I can walk you through this exact process the same way I walked you through the process of how to create a book and upload it to Amazon. The good news is this training, I'm selling it for an introductory price of only $87. This is a special because this is the first time I'm launching this course. In the future, it's going to cost a lot more, probably hundreds of dollars. So if you want to sign up for this now, you can get it for only $87. So what you do is you see an icon on the right side of the screen, a little icon that says Thesis to Book. Click on that, and that will take you to the sales page where you can sign up for the training there. This is training, again, it will be live. It's limited. There will be recordings for all of the training that we go through. So if you can't make it on the specific time, that's perfectly fine. You can watch the information later. But I'm limiting it because I want to give everybody hands-on learning possibilities. Here's why. If you sign up for this, I'm going to throw in 2 bonus coaching sessions. Here's what it is. If you sign up for it, you can have, we'll do this via Skype, 2 30-minute one-on-one sessions where I will help you. I can create a custom plan for you to launch your book. If you have any questions about the launch process, I will work you through with it. And I'll do a full audit of your book strategy. So I will make absolutely sure that what you're doing is the right course of action. I'll help you with any other thing that you need, whether getting your book in audiobook format, print on demand, your online course, foreign language translations. So if you sign up, I will give you personalized one-on-one help to do this. Also, if you sign up, you have a 30-day money-back guarantee. So there's no worry. If you don't like it, you can refund it. No questions asked. I will be happy to do so. I understand that sometimes we get something and we find it's not the right fit for us, and that's perfectly fine. Now, I should mention that there are only 20 spots available to sign up for this, and you can see the little counter on the right side of the screen. If you miss out on this opportunity, I don't know when this training will be available again. It could be several months because I have to go through it with this class, but there's only 20 spots available for this training. So please register now because space is limited. Also, this training that I showed you right now, this replay is only available for 48 hours. So it will go down after 48 hours so I can give kind of the hands-on attention for people who do sign up for the course. So if you want to go back through this again and learn how to turn your research into a book, you can do that, but it's only available again for 48 hours. Let me just show you what will happen real quick if you click on that icon on the right side of the screen. You'll be going to a secure checkout page where you'll enter your information, and there you'll create an account and enter your card information. Once you enter it, you'll get confirmation that you have signed up for the course, and you'll get an invoice number. You'll also get an email letting you know that it came in. That says PhD to Consulting, but it should be Thesis to Book. You get the idea, and that will let you know that you are signed up for the course, and that will give you the login information that you need so you can come back and get access to it. And that's where you will also get updates for when the training will take place. And that's where the videos and the courses and everything else will be available so that you can have future reference to it forever. I mentioned at the beginning of this webinar that if you stick around until the very end, you will get a free surprise gift. I said it had to do with finding reviews. Now, I did mention that if you contact friends and family, that's a good way to get reviews, but there's another way that's really good to get reviews fast. Let me show you what that is. That is Goodreads. Goodreads is a social media platform for book lovers. It's owned by Amazon, and millions of people go there to review books, leave ratings, have discussions about books, recommend books to their friends. Any self-published author should be on Goodreads. It is a great platform. You can use Goodreads to get all sorts of reviews for your book. All you have to do is find people who are willing to review it, send them an ebook copy, maybe a PDF, and they'll review it. Let me show you exactly where to go in Goodreads to get free reviews fast. There's a group. If you click on the top part of the screen, you see a button you can click on that says Groups. Look in Groups, and there's one called Making Connections. Making Connections is where you go, and you can just post here and say, hey everyone, I have a book. Would anyone like to review it? There's a lot of people in this book group who love free books, so they'll respond to you, and you'll send them a copy of it, maybe a PDF, maybe a Word, probably PDF, and a link to where they can review, and then they'll read it and review it, and that's it. So great way to make connections with people and get lots of free reviews. You're not being scammy. You're not doing a wink, wink, haha, give me 5 stars. It's totally legit, and it's a great way to grow reviews and to give legitimacy to your new book. Well, that's all I have to cover. Thank you for giving me your time. I really appreciate it. Please type in any questions you have on the right side of the screen, whether about the Thesis to Book course or about anything else that I have talked about, and I will be happy to answer your questions.